Welcome to the National Political Debates, brought to you by the Jamaica Debates Commission, in association with Jamaica Public Service Company Limited, changing lives with their energy, and the D&G Foundation, here for Jamaicans, here for Jamaica. Tonight, we focus on socioeconomic issues. Our moderator is Archibald Gordon.
Good evening. Welcome to the first of three political debates organized by the Jamaica Debates Commission, staged before a live studio audience. The debates are intended to assist in identifying, clarifying, and understanding the issues being presented in this general election campaign. This evening's debate focuses on socio-economic issues and is in the form of a team debate. As is customary in debates production, the audience is prohibited from applauding the debaters, except for now, after we introduce each team. Our two teams tonight are, for the People's National Party, Dr. Dayton Campbell. Miss Lisa Hanna. And Mr. Raymond Price. For the Jamaica Labour Party, Mrs. Marlene Malahoo Fort. Mr. Warren Newby. And Dr. Sophia Longmore. Members of the panel of questioners are Ingrid Brown of the Jamaica Observer, Garfield Burford of CVM Television, and Nadine McLeod of the RGR News Center. I am your moderator, Archibald Gordon. The guidelines for tonight's debates have been previously agreed and are posted on the Debate Commission's website. That's www.jamaicadebatescommission.org. The guidelines include questions being no longer than 30 seconds and each team being allowed 60 seconds to respond to each question. Rebuttals are limited to 45 seconds. The questions posed in tonight's debate are created solely by the panel of journalists and are not influenced by the Jamaica Debates Commission in any way. Arising from a coin toss earlier, Team JLP will go first in their opening statement, while Team PNP will make the final statement at the end of the debate. And now, the 2-minute opening statement from Team JLP.
Mr. Moderator, esteemed commissioners, distinguished panelists, my worthy opponents, fellow Jamaicans. We share a fervent desire to create a society that is just, safe, and enabling, allowing every youth, young Jamaican, the opportunity to attain their full potential. This has driven our desire and our firm commitment to make easier access to education, access to health care, access to capital, and to free our society of crime and violence. I believe, and certainly do most Jamaicans, that the JLP represents the best hope for Jamaica at this time. Our Prime Minister has demonstrated not only in his words, but also in his actions, a resolution to rid Jamaica of corruption, to create a transparent and accessible government. These are the tenets under which we come to seek your support for a second term. We say to you, the Jamaica Labour Party is the party of hope, helping our people to excellence. We salute our workers. We salute the artisans, the professionals. We salute the diaspora, and we encourage all to join us in this bid to make a better, safer, and more prosperous Jamaica land we love.
Thank you, Mr. Newby. Let us now hear Team PNP's 2-minute opening statement.
Good evening, everyone. On December 29, Jamaicans will go to the polls to elect a better team to lead them in the future for the next 5 years for a better quality of life. Raymond, Dayton, and I represent Team PNP, a team that has youth, fresh thinking, experience, and a team that comes to you with management capabilities and leadership capabilities. Dayton having been the president of the Medical Doctors Association, and Raymond being the former director of the Commission for Consumer Affairs, and I being Member of Parliament for South East St. Anne, and certainly Regional Chairman. The PNP has a strong track record of social and economic policies. We've seen it with the NHT, we've seen it with the National Health Fund, we've seen it certainly in the kinds of development we've done with land reform. We've also seen it in the way we build out our infrastructure, our road networks, the expansion of our airports, certainly the expansion of our highways. And all Jamaicans can be proud of the kind of work that we have done for the majority of our country. What we believe in is people power, equal access, equal prosperity, equal equity for all Jamaicans. That is what you will be voting for if you vote for the PNP, versus big money power if you vote for the JLP. The JLP had promised economic growth. Instead, we had 14 consecutive quarters of economic decline. They promised jobs. We've lost over 90,000 jobs over the past 4 years. They've promised to eliminate waste and corruption, and we've had the most glaring instances of waste and corruption, most recently the JDIP project. Ladies and gentlemen, if it is that you're better off today than you were 4 years ago, then the time has come. If you're worse off, then you must vote PNP. Thank you.
Thank you, Team PNP. Our first question tonight comes from Ingrid Brown from the Jamaica Observer, and it will be directed to Team JLP.
In light of the many complaints about the effect of the free healthcare policy on the quality of service available at public health institutions, and given Jamaica's financial constraints, why would you support a continuation of this policy, and what plans do you have to fund it for all users when there are some who can afford to pay?
Now, that's a very good question indeed, because it cuts to the heart of many Jamaicans. The free user access to healthcare that the JLP administration has implemented has been truly a successful venture. There are those who will contend this. However, empirical data implicates that 88% from a 47 billion spent on healthcare usage back in 2007 to 94 billion, I think. Let me correct that, but it's 88% increase in the usage of the healthcare services has been accessed by Jamaican people. In addition to that, we have had increased usage of pharmaceutical industries, and not just via writing prescriptions, but also the dispensation of medications. And this has seen a 71% increase in the satisfaction rate of the users of these services. Now,
thank you, Team JLP. Let's get a rebuttal from Team PNP.
The health sector is in crisis. We have crisis in relation to human resource, where we have a migration rate of 8% annually of nurses. We have a pharmaceutical society where they have 156 positions for pharmacists and only 45 being filled. We have a crisis in relation to the infrastructure and the equipment, where you can't have basic diagnostic equipment available. We have a crisis when it comes to pharmaceuticals, where you have a debt, where you currently are owing about $3 billion. So we're saying as the PNP that we're coming to the table and we are going to engage our stakeholders, because that is how you develop policy. We're going to go in and we're going to engage from the porters, the ward assistants and the nurses.
PNP. Let us move on to question number 2 by Garfield Burford. It will be posed to Team PNP.
What is your most radical approach to dealing with the issue of unattached youth, given the significant numbers we have in the society? The most radical approach.
The truth is that youth face a very serious challenge in Jamaica at this time. When we look at the statistics, close to 75% of all crime committed in this country is committed by persons who are under 30 years old. We also have 55% of persons leaving high school without having passed one exam subject, and 70% of our young people are not skilled to even be employable. What we will do is that we have to stem that tide. We have to make young people employable through training, and we plan to upgrade certainly the primary school and basic school training facilities by identifying the 200 underperforming primary schools and basic schools to upgrade them. And we also plan to go and give them job opportunities in the areas of information and communications technology. We plan to do it in agribusiness, and we plan to do it in construction. So when you see a People's National Party government on the move, we'll build up parish youth teams for construction, we'll have farmsteads for farmers in the short run, and certainly we'll put them in telecommunications call centers as well.
Thank you, Team PNP. We'll now have a 45-second rebuttal from Team JLP.
I want to thank my opponent for her endorsement of the CAP program. Under Prime Minister Holness, he has taken unattached youth and placed them into programs that enable them to be more, to acquire vocational skills, to be numerate, to be literate, and to acquire the soft skills in terms of deportment, in terms of conduct, in terms of discipline that will make them more productive citizens and qualify them for the workforce.
Thank you very much, Mr. Newby. Mr. Garfield Burford from CVM TV has indicated that he would like a follow-up question.
Right. In the context of tight fiscal constraints, how would this be funded in terms of improving the quality and upgrading primary and basic schools?
Well, the first thing that the PNP believes in is economic growth, and we have our plan for economic growth. But secondly, just in the same way that there were no new funds when the government embarked on the CDF program, we plan to adequately reallocate public sector funding that's already available to make sure that we put it in the right place for the construction parish build youth teams, for the farmsteads where we will give young people 5 to 10 acres of land. I want to say to the Senator that unfortunately the CAP program is not working. Over 60% of the NYS budget was cut, and we've also seen a reduction since 2007 in the hard figures, where we've dropped in enrollment from over 5,000 to a little over 1,000. So he needs to check his figures accurately.
We'll now have a rebuttal from Team JLP.
Well, the figures for Hard Trust NTA prior to now were greatly over-exaggerated because they were counting units done by students rather than persons who had been enrolled into the program. So for each unit, it would be recorded that a person has completed certification, when in fact, if a person did welding and went on to do mathematics, they would be counted 2 times instead of 1. We took a policy decision to discontinue this practice, and we are proud to say that since 1994...
Thank you very much, Mr. Newby. We will move on to a question. The next question is from Nadine McLeod. It will be posed to Team JLP.
Yes, should the existing age of consent be maintained, and why?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Should the existing age of consent be maintained,
Which
and why?
is age 16. Yes, correct. I was just making sure I had your question correctly. That is a question that relates to the socio-developmental issues of a young woman at that age and stage. And also, young men also, but I focus on women because at that age, they're the ones who are most vulnerable for the negative consequences of early sexual involvement. Age 16, at that age, a child is at the stage of intimacy versus, identity versus confusion. They're trying to find who they are, literally. A teenager at that age is trying to find who they are. They're trying to figure out where they fit in society. Their greatest influences at that age is their peer influence, because that is where their interactions determine where they will go in life. And as such, if you lower the age of consent, you're putting them at risk for even wrong decisions that could lead to very, very serious consequences later on. It is a very...
Thank you very much, Dr. Longmore. Let's move on to a rebuttal from Team PNP.
Not so much of a rebuttal, but better redress of the question that has been posed. The issue of the age of consent is really about the initiation of sexual activity. The age of consent makes a distinction between what is considered statutory rape versus what is consensual sex. I think the most important area to focus our attention is to ensure that adequate information, resources, and skills which will allow people, young adults, to come to decisions that are in keeping with their better outcome later on in life is what is to be supplied. We need to go back to the long-held view from the Western African proverb that it takes a village to raise a child. More members of the national
Thank you very
family
much,
at the
Mr.
community
Price.
level
Let's
need
move
to
on
be
to
able to
the
do
next
that.
question. It's Ingrid Brown to Team PNP.
If the PNP is elected to office, will it immediately reverse the no user fee policy? And if yes, how will it ease the healthcare cost burden on the poor?
The PNP will not immediately reverse the no user policy. What we're saying is that we agree that healthcare delivery shouldn't be based on finances. We agree with that. And I want to remind Jamaica that it was the People's National Party on May 27, 2007 that first removed user fees for children ages 0 to 18. That was done by Portia Simpson Miller. Now, what we're saying is that we want to engage our stakeholders. We want to bring them to the table and say, we want to sit down and determine what is the minimum standard of care that we can afford to give. So that's the first thing, consultative governance. The second thing that we want to bring to the table is a focus on primary health care. If you focus on primary health care, you automatically address 80% of the needs of the population. When you have a third of the persons who are diabetic not knowing, and 80% of them who are hypertensive not controlled, then primary health care must be the focus. We also want to look at mobile health clinic, refurbishing of the health centers, 340 to benefit over 700 communities.
Campbell. Moving on now to a response from a rebuttal from Team JLP.
I'm glad that Dr. Campbell has recognized that an immediate reversal would not be a wise move. Indeed, there is no empirical data. Actually, a World Bank study done reflects that the removal of user fees and the implication of payment at healthcare facilities actually reduces the usage by persons who are supposed to benefit from it. Only 12% of persons of the low-income category actually get to access user fees, get to access healthcare, when you have implemented user fees. Regarding the primary healthcare center development, we have actually, our administration has actually embarked on that, spending over $500 million improving hospitals since our administration has taken office throughout Jamaica. The Mandeville Regional Hospital.
Thank you very much, Dr. Longmore. We'll move on to the next question. It's from Garfield Burford to Team JLP.
To quote a sentence from your manifesto in 2007, the JLP said, "Our youth must be at the center of our development." How then do you square that or reconcile that with a cut in the supplementary budget in education and youth to the tune of an aggregate of about $165 million earlier this year?
Well, the very first thing is that we must approach youth from the perspective of youth mainstreaming. The budget of education and youth do not reflect the entire spend on youth because health, national security, industry and commerce, and all other ministries have agencies and programs under their mandate that are directly related to our youth. Beyond that, we have engaged the international donor community to augment and support our budget in education and youth.
Thank you very much, Mr. Newby. Let's get a rebuttal from Team PNP.
Well, if that is what the JLP has to come with, it really has abandoned youth, because in the Ministry of Youth and Culture, of the $1.9 billion in recurrent expenditure, only $83 million is actually spent. It needs to be a reversal in terms of how we look at the majority of our population. What is most interesting with the JLP as well, if you look through the budget, the most significant increase towards any kind of spend is towards juvenile centers. And they've increased that to over $500 million to $800 million. They're spending more money to lock up young people than they are to train them.
We now have a follow-up question. Mr. Burford has indicated that he'll have a follow-up question. Just a reminder that each journalist is allowed 2 follow-up questions during the entire debate.
Of the aggregate $165 million, this was the second time since the budget cut this year that there was a deferral of the building of youth information centers. There was actually a deferral from last year as well. Wouldn't this adversely impact on youth?
Mr. Burford, the contracts for the 2 centers that were deferred are to be signed shortly. Cabinet recently approved those for Spanish Town and for Maypen in Clarendon. What happened was that the land acquisition process and the approval process was delaying the other approvals that run concurrently. And as such, we had to take a decision to delay the implementation until later on in the year. We are proud, though, to say that when we came to office, there were only 4 youth information centers. Today, there are 9.
Thank you very much, Mr. Newby. We will have a rebuttal from Team PNP.
You know, it is no wonder why they say pride goeth before a fall. That Mr. Newby is proud of that record. I think he should revert to his State of the Nation address of 3 years ago when he indicated a specific, measurable, time-bound objective that there would have been by now at least 14 youth information centers. He didn't speak then about land acquisition issues, so I think he needs to check his own record and see where the reversals really are.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Price. Let's move on to the next question. It's from Nadine McLeod, and it goes to Team PNP.
There are about 50,000 young people who are unemployed, according to the Economic and Social Survey report of 2010. What workable plan does your party have for them?
Thank you. The People's National Party has several plans in the work. Certainly the first is to get the economy growing, because over the last 3 years we've seen 14 consecutive quarters of economic decline. We have an emergency program to not only kickstart the economy, but certainly to face the crippling levels of poverty that have doubled under the Jamaica Labour Party. One of the things that we'll be doing is be providing farmlands for youth in agriculture to have farmsteads so that they'll have irrigation and provide suitable agricultural products for agribusiness. We'll also give youth in construction internship and work by putting together parish-built teams to fix indigent housing, certainly roads, gullies, bridges, etc. And we'll also go into ICTs and the creative industries where young people are very, very talented. Even in our prisons, some of the best music comes out of our prisons in Jamaica. But we will be actually giving them grants to go into these areas so that they can
Thank you
have
very
better
much, Ms.
facilities.
Hannah. Let's have a rebuttal from Team JLP.
Yes?
The PNP believes that it is the role of the state to create jobs. We strongly disagree. We believe in a private sector-led approach, and this is why, despite the global recession, we have undertaken the most comprehensive reform package to free capital to enable ideas and capital to meet at a point that will drive job creation. We have not had the sort of success that we imagined, but the constraints that are structural and others that are international crippled our efforts. Despite that, however, we created 67,000 jobs over the last couple of years.
Thank you very much, Mr. Newby. We'll move on to the next question. It's from Ingrid Brown, and it goes to Team JLP.
Jamaica's main city, Kingston, is overrun with inner cities, many without proper infrastructure. How do you propose to tackle the problem of urban blight to help improve the future of young people in some of these communities?
Well, the tackle of urban blight is a very challenging one, not only shared in Jamaica, but the world over. However, one of the findings that we have seen is that rural Jamaica is grossly underpopulated. That is where 70% of the poverty of Jamaica exists. If there are ways that we can collaborate, fusion between urban development and rural development, I think there needs to be that level of care towards rural development to enable and enhance resources in the urban city, in the urban areas. You have to catch these unattached youths that are usually on the streets. We have plans in place. The Community Renewal Program is a program that has been put in place by the JLP that has been rolled out since October of this year and is operating in the primary crime-ridden areas of the country. Kingston, St. Andrew, St. Catherine, St. James, Clarendon are parishes that this program has actually started in.
Thank you very much, Dr. Longmore. Let's move on to the next, first, the rebuttal from Team PNP.
The example, much-known example in South St. Andrew applies, where with existing resources and vision, there can be a better coordinated approach to bring resources in terms of financial resources and activities for the numbers of young persons to get additional education and training that can be then reinvested in the communities. I want to also touch on another area. The proponents, the Jamaica Labour Party, speak of their record. Perhaps, alas, if they had wasted less money on the JDIP, for instance, in the Christiana Road to Nowhere that is still unfinished but well over budget, then some of that $1 billion could have been applied to convert more of our inner cities into winner cities by putting the resources where they're most needed.
We will now take a short break and we invite you to stay tuned.
The smiles on their faces mean more than just happiness. Since 2002, the JPS Early Childhood Nutrition Program has been supporting thousands of children across the island. The program now feeds 30,000 basic school students every day. With good nourishment, they're eager and able to learn. The JPS has links to communities that go well beyond wires and poles. Here, with a little help from JPS, early childhood students are getting a chance to shine.
Now this one is called All About the Music.
Fulfilling hopes, creating dreams, and making a difference are at the heart of the Denny and Geddes Foundation. Through our Diageo Learning for Life skills training programs, over 1,800 Jamaicans now have a real chance of contributing to Jamaica's economic growth.
Upon being accepted, we learn a lot of things. Before, I thought I was just going to come and mix up some drinks and flip some bottles and stuff. But before we got to that, the meat of the matter, I learned personal development, working with colleagues and customers, communicating on the telephone instead of saying, hello, who is this?
Certified as bartenders, drapery makers, plumbers, tilers, waiters, housekeepers, customer service agents, and landscapers. Diageo Learning for Life graduates are empowered, competent, and able to give back to their families, communities, and Jamaica. The Denny and Geddes Foundation, here for Jamaicans, here for Jamaica.
It's all about the music.
Go out and vote for who we want to vote for and respect each other.
Can't go every day a kill off one another, so we need love.
Violence just mash up Jamaica.
Even the devil vex over it, brother.
We are all one Jamaican.
We want peace and we want to know to reason one another.
Well, let's keep things violence free.
So please, peace all the way.
Crime free election, and that me I ask for.
Share a direct, unified love with each other.
One nation united under God. Jamaica need love. No gun, just love.
Respect.
Respect. Respect.
Respect. Respect.
Respect.
The National Political Debates, brought to you by Jamaica Debates Commission, in association with Jamaica Public Service Company Limited, changing lives with their mission, and the DNG Foundation, here for Jamaicans, here for Jamaica.
Welcome back to the first in a series of 3 political debates being facilitated by the Jamaica Debates Commission. If you're just joining us, welcome as well. We invite Garfield Burford of CVM Television to start this segment with a question for Team PNP.
In the 1970s, there was perhaps the sharpest division in terms of the parties on ideology, economic management between both JLP and PNP. Since then, many persons argue that there really is not much of an ideological difference in terms of economic management between JLP and PNP. Do you agree with that? And one, and two, if not, can Jamaicans expect accelerated levels of growth, much faster levels of growth than the average 1% you managed in your 18 and a half years in office?
Well, the first thing is that there's a stark difference between our ideologies. The PNP actually manages the economy and the JLP does not. We actually had 13 years of the 18 years that we were in office for positive economic growth. What is also interesting is that we gave to the JLP our debt at 104%. We had reduced poverty to 9.8%, the lowest in our history. What have they done with it? They've grown the debt to over 130%. They've lost over 90,000 jobs. They've had 14 consecutive quarters of no growth. We have managed in times of the IMF, and we've also had growth in that time, and we've also had record foreign direct investment in that time as well.
The one additional point I'd like to add to that, the issue of ideology is about outcomes. The People's National Party remain focused on people power. It is seen in the delivery during the 18 years of new schools built, new hospitals built, new community centres built. So far, well, everybody at home knows the last time a school was built, the
Thank you
PNP
very
was
much,
in
Mr.
power.
Price. Let's have a rebuttal from Team JLP.
I think the issue of the PNP being a better steward of the economy is a laughing one. The PNP managed the economy at a time when the world was seeing growth. What kind of growth did we see in Jamaica? They have shown no credibility in dealing with the economy. And now that we're in global recession, I'm telling Jamaicans that they cannot be trusted to manage the economy.
We will have the next question now. It's Nadine McLeod, and it goes to Team JLP.
Thank you. The head of the Pharmaceutical Society of Jamaica was recently sent home pending an investigation. She was sent home for reiterating the association's cry for government to desist from using pharmacy technicians to dispense drugs at public health facilities. Was it a wrong decision, and should it be revoked?
Now, I have to be very careful with that question in the sense that you're asking me something about a public civil servant, an issue that is currently being explored and investigated by the necessary agencies. So at this point in time, I think it would be unprofessional and irresponsible of me to actually comment in this manner on something that could impact somebody on such a personal level. And so I will defer the question at this point in time.
A rebuttal from Team PNP.
While they might want to defer the question, I think it speaks to a pattern. There is a member of that panel who recently cancelled a youth conference. It shows a habit of the overreach of the executive and leaving processes that are best dealt with professional bodies such as the Public Services Commission to adjudicate on issues of national development to the whims and fancies or the pendulum swings or mercuric personalities of those in the political classes of the Jamaica Labour Party.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Next question now from Ingrid Brown, and it goes to Team PNP.
Jamaica is poorly ranked on Transparency International's corruption index. How would a government formed by your party seriously and genuinely tackle corruption?
Well, that's perhaps the question I'm happiest for this evening. The fall in the ranking of Transparency International, along with the competitiveness index and the foreign direct investments, are actually all we believe on this side an indication, a manifestation of a global community that has lost trust and confidence in the management of the Jamaican economy and the Jamaican society by the Jamaica Labour Party. The issue of restoring transparency goes to the core of the People's National Party's policies, as was evident with the establishment of greater powers for the Office of the Contractor General, the Access to Information Act, and the opening up of the committees of Parliament to public scrutiny. Look at the result of that opening up when civil society held their feet firmly on the JLP administration to let them proceed with an extradition which they had frustrated for several months.
A rebuttal now from Team JLP.
I believe that Jamaicans must take care in filtering this issue of transparency through PNP lenses. They have really shown no credibility on it. Under the Jamaica Labour Party government, a manifesto promise was made in the 2007 election. Promise made, promise kept. All sessional committees of Parliament are chaired by opposition, and that has opened up all of the inner happenings for others to see. A decrease in the ranking does not necessarily follow that a country has fallen. Other countries may have improved in their standings.
Next question goes to Garfield Burford, and it goes to Team JLP.
As younger members of your party, how differently, if at all, would you have dealt with the Jamaica Development Infrastructure Program, JDIP, especially in the area of whether or not it should have been included in the budget from the first place?
Well, the JDIP project is clearly something that went wrong. There has been issues that went wrong there, and the Prime Minister has recognized such, and that is why he has taken the decisions that he has taken personal responsibility of the portfolio. We have seen that there has been consequences to the actions of some of the persons responsible for the JDIP project. Yes, I agree that maybe it should have been well, actually not maybe, it should have been followed through and pursued with the right budgetary pathways, so to speak. And it is a matter where it is currently under review. We are awaiting what the outcomes will be. And I think what the Prime Minister has indicated is that he will make full transparency of the outcomes of the project.
A rebuttal from Team PNP.
I sit on the Public Accounts Committee, and it's interesting that Dr. Longmore actually has that to say. I want to address something that Marlene said before, however. The global recession was in 2008. Since then, 74% of the world's economies have moved on, and they're not complaining about it. We somehow have got stuck. These are instances, particularly the Jamaica Development Infrastructure Program, why it is that we say they cannot manage. If you borrow money at the extent that you're borrowing it and you're spending it as if it is your own, then somehow something is wrong. And even more egregious is the fact that the Prime Minister was a part of the cabinet when the JDIP was being discussed. So he cannot obfuscate himself from blame at this time.
Next question is Nadine McLeod, and it goes to Team PNP.
The current reduction in crime has been criticized as being short-term and as stemming from the Christopher Dudus Cook extradition. I'd like you to share with us the critical aspects of a plan for real and sustainable reduction in crime should your party form the next government.
I'll take that one. The reduction in crime would be short-lived if the elements of the functional cooperation with our stakeholders, such as the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom, were ever to see a reversal. I believe that some of the rhetoric that has come from the platforms of the Jamaica Labour Party is cause for all of us as Jamaicans who love peace in our society to be very careful in assessing their utterances. The issue as well of keeping it sustainably low speaks to opportunities for enterprise and employment for young people, so that less of our playing fields, for example, will become killing fields, so that the idle hands that criminals and those who will corrupt our young people have access to will be engaged in productive activity, which is part of the centerpiece of the manifesto of the People's National Party and will be how we proceed in the next administration.
Thank you, Mr. Price. A rebuttal from Team JLP.
My fellow Jamaicans, the issue of crime is a very complex one, extremely complex, and we are all suffering from it. And we have to be careful that we do not give it that color of PNP or JLP. The reduction that we are experiencing is real, and it has happened under a JLP administration. There are a number of measures that need to be put in place and sustained, but a number of measures have already been put in place, and all Jamaicans must be a part of fighting this problem in order to make the fight sustainable.
Thank you, Mrs. Mallow-Huford. Let's get the next question from Ingrid Brown, and it goes to Team JLP.
Business operators have complained that bureaucracy is stifling business expansion. How do you propose that this can be addressed?
Well, business operators would be quite happy to learn that the government has just simplified the tax reform, the payment of taxes to enable one single document, the SO2, to enable them to file all their statutory declarations using this one form. Other initiatives are being undertaken by the Ministry of Industry and Commerce to enable simpler business registration. And further to this, we must celebrate the fact that 85% of all approvals for building are today delivered under the 90-day limit.
Thank you, Mr. Newby. A rebuttal from Team PNP.
The truth is that businesses in Jamaica today are having it very, very difficult, and a very difficult time moving forward. There's no demand in the sector. There's no productivity in the sector. Electricity costs are high. Businesses are closing. And so what we would do as a People's National Party government is truly diversify our energy base to make sure that businesses can pay electricity bills functionally, properly, and on time. We'd also put in place mechanisms to ensure that they have access to capital. And what we would also do is ensure that our young people have access to capital so that they can start meaningful businesses for economic growth. Because let us face it, we will not be able to pay back the IMF or the JDIP money if we have no growth in this economy.
Thank you, Ms. Anna. Garfield Burford has the next question. It goes to Team PNP.
On the issue of governance, as younger members of your party, how differently, if at all, would you have dealt with the Trafigura matter, especially as it relates to whether or not you would have also gone to court to try to prevent it from being heard in open court?
All right, I'll say two things on that, without relying on the line used by Safile to say that because it is currently something under review, I won't speak to it directly. With respect to Trafigura, the People's National Party's understanding of that was it as a political contribution made by a foreign firm. No Jamaican laws were broken in accepting that contribution. However, issues have arisen and they persist today. The course of action before the Jamaican courts must be respected. All Jamaicans are protected under the Constitution. The persons from the People's National Party who are currently appearing before the courts are insisting that their rights be upheld under the Jamaican Constitution. With respect to political contributions, however, our view and the view of the People's National Party going forward is to accept the proposal put forward by civil society and the Electoral Commission of Jamaica. And we wish that the Jamaica Labour Party parliamentarians
Thank you, Mr. Price. A
would agree with
now
that.
From Team JLP.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, we mustn't pay lip service to the fight on corruption. A critical part of fighting corruption is transparency. And here is an issue that many Jamaicans still have questions about. Here is an issue that the overseas companies have questions about. I can't see what is there to hide. If transparency is so critical, let us open the case to the public. Let us open it as all the other issues have been opened to the public. We mustn't pay lip service to the fight against corruption.
The next question goes as well to Team JLP. It's from Nadine MacLeod.
Now, many university students cannot afford to pay tuition fees upfront. What programs can your party in power implement to help more young people access tertiary education while reducing the burden on the state?
Well, it is I am quite happy with that question because today one of our success stories as an administration is the reforms that have been administered to the Student Loan Bureau. We have expanded the pool of funds available for on lending. We have reduced the interest rates, and we have changed how the interest rates are computed from compounded interest to the reducing balance. We have also extended the time available for repayment and also the grace period before which one has to start to repay. In that context, we are creating an enabling environment for more Jamaicans, young Jamaicans, to access tertiary education.
Thank you, Mr. Newby. A rebuttal now from Team PNP.
And as we rebut that one, Marlene can't escape. If she believes so much in transparency, who paid for Mannert, Phelps and Phillips? And as a former resident magistrate, to so callously disregard the rules of the court and our Constitution is shameless, graceless and vulgar. Dayton?
In relation to tertiary education, what we want to do is that we want to have a public-private partnership in providing employment for our students at the tertiary level. We also want to look at the students' loan and want to look at the repayment. How do we calculate the repayment period for these individuals? And we want to tie that to their employment post-university. So we want to look at what job it is that they have secured and then work out a payment system in relation to that job that they have secured.
Thank you, Dr. Campbell. Nadine MacLeod has indicated that she will use one of her follow-up questions now.
Aside from the reform to the Student Loan Bureau, should your party be returned to power, what other programs can and will you put in place to help these students?
Well, we have been expanding the concept of workforce colleges through the Heart Trust NTA to lift the skill levels that are available for vocational training for all young Jamaicans. This will enable us to attract the sort of investment that is specialized to the areas that we are training our young people in. It is supported by labor market data, and we are of the view that by 2020, we're going to be raising the number of Jamaicans that are certified at this level to 50%.
A rebuttal from Team PNP.
The truth is that I'm not quite sure what Warren is actually speaking about. And it's very interesting to actually hear him give that kind of data. If the People's National Party is returned to government, we will do exactly what Dayton has said in terms of finding meaningful ways for students to repay their student loan and work out teacher, private sector, joint venture relationships where private sector matches the funds that we put up.
Ingrid Brown has the next question. It goes to Team PNP.
Some young Jamaicans in particular have become quite disenchanted with the politics of old. Do you agree with those who call for the retirement of the stalwarts to make way for fresh faces with new ideas? Why or why not?
It is more than about retirement for fresh faces, because you can have, as displayed here, young people who are so cemented in the old approach that their dates of birth make them too redundant and in need of retirement. Our commitment is, having been away from the front line for the last 4 years, we have assessed global developments so that we are able, as we have displayed with the progressive agenda and will confirm with the manifesto, designed a set of policies and programs where the experience and wisdom of stalwarts in the PNP, matched by the energy, experience, and new approaches of Lisa, Dayton, myself, and so many of our other young candidates, to bring about a new approach to match the emerging and existing challenges which face our society.
A rebuttal now from Team JLP.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, and my fellow Jamaicans, what Raymond has done demonstrates the old politics of nasty attacks and getting personal, and it is so wrong. I know many of you, like me, are just tired of that old politics. But there are 3 stages of people's life: the ascent, the apex, and the decline. And giving up power is very important, as taking power. And people must leave gracefully and hand over to the next generation. There are new mountains to climb. Leave gracefully and you lead happier lives. This is the time for a next generation in leadership.
Thank you, Mrs. Malahoo Ford. Garfield Burford has the next question. It goes to Team JLP.
Many Jamaicans expect newer, fresher, and more progressive thinking from younger Jamaicans. As younger members of your party, what is the most radical strategy that you would employ to implement to deal with unattached youth?
Well, unattached youth, as you would have recognized, is covered under our CAP program that today is training 12,300 young persons enrolled in 78 institutions. And in addition to that, some 4,500 are being trained through the National Youth Service. And of course, the Heart Trust NTA trained just last year 85,000. So we are making a very serious attempt at dealing with the issue of unattached youth. But beyond that, we are looking at what has caused youth to be unattached and placing in the educational system the relevant checks and balances to ensure that before they leave at sixth form, they are adequately prepared to meet the demands of the labor market.
As part of that, we will look at those who are young offenders, those with mental health problems, alcohol problems.
Thank you, Mrs. Malahoo Ford. I believe the time for that is up. Let's have a rebuttal from Team PNP.
The truth is that unattached youth is a serious problem, and the majority of our crimes are committed by young people who are under 30 years old. The PNP has a vision, because the truth is you cannot train young people if you have no job to put them in. And the fact of the matter is, we have not been able to compete in this global economy. The PNP intends to pick the winners that we will compete in: agribusiness, tourism, creative industries, and train our youth as a pool to feed into these industries. So it's a bigger plan, it's a bigger pot. And we want to say to our young people that we will be creating those jobs in the short term and the medium term. We've done it before, and the JLP has squandered that away by losing over 90,000 jobs since they have taken office.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. Nadeem McLeod has the next question, and it goes to Team PNP.
Yes, you said in your opening statement that you bring a team that has youth, fresh thinking, and experience. Now, some may say that it sounds all too familiar. Along with that, young people represent a large percentage of uncommitted voters. What else can we expect from you, and how will your government seek to win these uncommitted voters?
All right, the issue of uncommitted voters is part of the response that, not only in her opening statement, but the last response that Lisa alluded to. There is an expectation and delivery deficit. There has been for some time. We mean to correct that. Correcting that is more than describing statistics, Warren. It is about putting tangible manifestations, not just manifestos, Marlene. One example: of the money misused in the JDIP program, for example, if that were to have been applied to some of the programs such as the Agency for Inner City Renewal by Henley Morgan and other civil society and community-based led organizations, they could have plug-in points for our young people who we continuously describe as unattached, who actually are just seeking the proper programs to attach themselves to.
Thank you, Mr. Price. We'll now have a rebuttal from Team JLP.
Ladies and gentlemen, fresh thinking is about rejecting old-style politics, which has harmed us more than it has helped us. And we have a young Prime Minister, Honorable Andrew Holness, who is demonstrating what it takes to lead a country as a new generation of fresh thinker. And I just cite one example of pulling people in and holding them accountable. The issue of JDIP has been raised. There are a number of issues that we have, a number of problems we face as a nation. But we're not going to solve them if we are not able to break away from that old-time thinking and just attacking each other, as Mr. Price, you're doing. It's just plain wrong. Plain wrong. That's not fresh thinking.
What are the solutions?
Let us show how leadership can mobilize people around a common cause.
We will now take a short break. We invite you to stay tuned.
The smiles on their faces mean more than just happiness. Since 2002, the JPS Early Childhood Nutrition Program has been supporting thousands of children across the island. The program now feeds 30,000 basic school students every day. With good nourishment, they're eager and able to learn. The JPS has links to communities that go well beyond wires and poles. Here, with a little help from JPS, early childhood students are getting a chance to shine.
Now this one is called All About the Music.
Fulfilling hopes, creating dreams, and making a difference are at the heart of the Daniel Geddes Foundation. Through our Diageo Learning for Life skills training programs, over 1,800 Jamaicans now have a real chance of contributing to Jamaica's economic growth.
On being accepted, we learn a lot of things. Before, I thought I was just going to come and mix up some drinks and flip some bottles and stuff. But before we got to that, the meat of the matter, I learned personal development, working with colleagues and customers, communicating on the telephone instead of saying, hello, who is this?
Certified as bartenders, drapery makers, plumbers, tilers, waiters, housekeepers, customer service agents, and landscapers. Diageo Learning for Life graduates are empowered, competent, and able to give back to their families, communities, and Jamaica. The Daniel Geddes Foundation, here for Jamaicans, here for Jamaica.
It's all about the music.
Go out and vote for who we want to vote for and respect each other.
Can't go every day and kill off one another, so we need love.
Violence just mash up Jamaica.
Even the devil vex over it, brother.
We are all one Jamaican.
We want peace and we want to know to reading one another.
Well, let's keep the thing violence-free.
So please, peace all the way.
Crime-free election, and that me I ask for.
Share a direct, unified love with each other.
One nation united under God. Jamaica need love. No gun, just love.
Respect.
Respect. Respect. Respect.
Respect.
Respect.
The National Political Debates, brought to you by Jamaica Debates Commission, in association with Jamaica Public Service Company Limited, changing lives with their mission, and the DNG Foundation, here for Jamaicans, here for Jamaica.
Welcome back to the first in a series of 3 political debates being facilitated by the Jamaica Debates Commission. If you're just joining us, welcome as well. We will invite Nadine McLeod of the RGR Group to start this segment with a follow-up question.
Thank you. I'd asked Team JLP earlier a question about the PSJ, the head of the PSJ who was sent home. You had said that you cannot answer the question, understandably. But can you address the issue of perceived victimization of members of the public sector who speak out on issues?
I believe that victimization is wrong. It's wrong. There is a process that should be undertaken if there is a problem. And I know that this is a perception that people are being victimized. I think it's wrong if it actually exists. But let us not jump the gun. Let us allow each case to be investigated and let us see what happens, because people's lives are affected in a personal way. And you know, it's we who let each other down on a one-to-one basis. We are the ones, we the Jamaican people, who disregard process. We shouldn't do it. So I think if there is a proper case of victimization, there should be recourse. But let us not prejudge an issue.
And may I emphasize that the reason that I chose not to respond to that question was because there was
a
civil servant involved in the issue. It was
is
a personal
rebuttal
matter.
no from Team PNP?
I must say, I know Mrs. Germain personally, and this victimization started when we made a joint presentation to a parliamentary committee. Now, the truth is that you have 156 positions for pharmacists and you only have 45. And what they have done is to use pharmacy techs to dispense meds in the other pharmacies. Now, that is just wrong. The woman is defending something that is there by law. Now, if they can't show some just reason for it to happen...
Thank you, Dr. Campbell. Ingrid Bowen now has the next question, and it goes to Team JLP.
Why should Jamaica continue to have a shortage of some professions when there are brilliant Jamaicans who just need the financial support to be trained in these areas? What would be the solution under a government formed by your party?
Well, the Prime Minister, as Minister of Education, indicated that there has to be a new regime in the financing of tertiary education. It requires the development of an education trust to allow parents to save towards the tertiary education of their children. It requires participation from the public sector, and it requires participation from the private sector. This is working at the University of the West Indies today, that is raising its endowment fund. And to complement that, we have demonstrated our commitment by making it easier at the Student Loan Bureau for students to access financing. Outside of that, we must emphasize that there is a personal responsibility that must be communicated to parents, that they too have a stake in the education of their children.
Thank you, Mr. Newby. We'll have a rebuttal from Team PNP.
You know, Raymond Dayton and myself are standing here because of the policies and programs of the People's National Party. Dayton himself grew up in Bamboo St. Anne and was able to access university education. Raymond and myself were able to access university education as well. All Jamaicans want to be able to see their children access higher education and learning, and certainly live a better quality of life. We in the PNP plan to reallocate resources. That's the first thing. But the second thing is to structure a better deal with the Student Loan Bureau so that students can pay back their loans that is tied to their employment at an interest rate that they can afford.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. Ingrid Bowen has indicated that she would like to use her first follow-up question.
For those unable to meet the criteria of the Student Loan Bureau, would you support bonding of such persons, the government financing their training, and then they are bonded to public sector?
This is an approach that has been done before, certainly with persons in the medical profession who are enabled to complete their training and then are bonded for a period of time, and also in the educational profession. But I must indicate that this message about tying repayment to persons' employment, we have already taken decisions that for medical doctors, for other professions who have to repay greater sums, we are going to be realigning their loan repayments to reflect those realities. So that has been done already. And then beyond that, the issue of bonding is something that is being done and can be enhanced over in the next term.
Thank you, Mr. Newby. We'll now have a rebuttal from Team PNP.
I somehow don't think that my opponents have a real grasp of what is going on in the country. Because when I hear the number of students being deregistered, when I hear the number of students who are at home who don't have a job, whose students' loan is writing every month, I'm wondering if we're talking about the same thing. Now, what we are bringing to the table is that we're saying that as long as a student, and this is the concept that the People's National Party is built on, of equality, as long as they have what it takes, they should be able to get that education, especially members of our disabled community.
Garfield Burford has the next question. It goes to Team PNP.
Standard & Poor's, in their outlook on Jamaica and lowering the outlook to negative, they cited the possibility for early elections and a change in administration. Are you concerned that Standard & Poor's is concerned about a change in administration?
Standard & Poor's concern is rightly placed at the fact that the current administration have so mismanaged the situation, missing IMF tests. In fact, we don't know whether or not they are taken, but we certainly know they have not been passed. And their warning really was for a fixity of purpose, as stated in the letter of intent with the IMF, which has been frustrated by, one, the long protracted denial of the global recession, the failure to properly diagnose, and then the lateness to response, which has become typical of whether it's Bruce Golding or Andrew Holness. That's one thing that has certainly been reflected in the continuity approach Mr. Holness speaks about. Standard & Poor's wants a change in administration in terms of the management of the economy. We are not concerned that they were saying not an administration of the People's National Party. They really were saying what is happening cannot continue to happen. Our private sector appreciates that.
Thank you, Mr. Price. We will now have a rebuttal from Team JLP.
You are wrong, Mr. Price, because what is reflected by Standard & Poor is the general view of the international capital markets of a fear of the People's National Party. They know that you have missed so many targets that you have set in your administration of 18 years that they are scared that there's an opportunity that you could return.
I've had a lot of discussions with my friends in the international community, and the fear is that a PNP administration has shown no credibility in managing the economy well in times of plenty, and therefore there is nervousness as to whether they will be able to do it in these very difficult times. And so there is a concern as to whether the current policies will
Thank
be
you, Mrs.
continued.
Malou Fort. Nadine McLeod has the next question. It's to Team JLP.
The female-male ratio tertiary institution is more than 80-20. To what extent is this a concern to your party, and how urgently will you address this issue?
That is one of the important undertakings of CAP. For every one girl that is enrolled in CAP, there are 2 boys, because we recognize the deficit. CAP enables them to reach matriculation, and through a combination of what is offered by the workforce colleges of the Hard Trust NTA and the traditional offerings of the universities, we are sure that by 2020 we are going to be increasing the number of Jamaicans who are degreed and lettered.
And let us underscore the fact that the persons involved who are taken into CAP are persons who are usually unattached youths, persons who are usually school leavers without a full completed education, and persons who require that level of additional training to make them worthy of entering the workplace market. So these are the disenfranchised youths who normally would not have an opportunity to further themselves in their employment capabilities.
Thank you, Dr. Longmore. We will now have a rebuttal from Team PNP.
You know, the issue with CAP is that I believe it needs to be capped. If it has been as successful as our opponents believe, then why aren't the young people who it has been designed to attract not seeing themselves matriculate from welfare to well-being and from well-being to wealth creation? The missing link that none of these representatives of the Jamaica Labour Party seem to be willing to confront is that a government's primary job is to grow the economy, as the People's National Party did in 15 of 18 years in its last tenure in office, and not as the shrill remarks of Marlene suggest that her friends in the international community have told her that they're afraid of a
Thank you,
PNP
Mr. Price.
administration.
We will now have the next question from Ingrid Brown, and it goes to Team PNP.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness is pushing for a public-private partnership, which would, among other things, result in the divestment of a number of loss-making entities to the private sector. If your party should form the next government, is this a policy that you would undertake?
Well, the first thing that we have to acknowledge, Ingrid, is that we are in an IMF agreement that we don't seem to know anything about. And the government has actually failed its own targets. We're not quite sure if they've met the 9% of GDP in terms of its public sector wages, and we're not sure where we're actually going from there. The PNP administration have actually passed 12 consecutive tests with the IMF and told them bye, and we've actually had growth during those periods. The thing about going forward with any administration in terms of doing public sector and private sector partnerships, absolutely, you're going to have to do it because we don't have enough money in the budget to do anything further than what is actually there. The other thing that you need to recognize moving forward is that we have to have economic growth. There's no way we can do it without it. We have to find those winners that we can compete in globally, find those industries that bring in foreign exchange, and give the private sector the opportunity to invest in those industries so that we can actually have growth in this economy. And the PNP has already put that plan in place.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. We have rebuttal now from Team JLP.
Lisa failed to enunciate that the People's National Party presided over the collapse of the financial and productive sectors of Jamaica under a regime called FinSAC. Today, we have reaped the benefits of that, and we are working assiduously through our reform programs to set Jamaica back on the right track.
The issue of public-private partnership is critical, and I think it speaks to one of the ideological differences between the JLP and the PNP. We see government as an enabler, and they see government as a major participant. Government alone cannot do it. We have to form partnerships for the people, critical partnerships.
Thank you, Mrs. Mallow-Ford. Garfield Burford has the next question. It goes to Team JLP.
In 2007, you promised jobs, jobs, jobs. Over the past 4 years, you've actually lost jobs in the economy. Why should Jamaicans, especially young people, have any faith that you would do it this time around if you're put in office for a second time?
Because, Garfield, we have created the enabling conditions for jobs to be created. Stable inflation rate, a stable dollar, low interest rates, reduction in taxes in critical areas that will free up real estate that people can use that as collateral to access the financial markets and finance their projects. We have also engaged in a very aggressive program of targeting foreign direct investments, such as the appointment of our ICT ambassador who has generated already a deal that will yield 1,000 jobs in the new year.
Thank you, Mr. Newby. We will now have a rebuttal from Team PNP.
You know that the JLP always has this fallacy about reducing interest rates. In its first year of office, it actually doubled interest rates. The reason why interest rates are low, the lowest in 40 years, is because of the global recession, and interest rates actually came down. And because they were going to default on their debt in terms of interest on debt, that they went to the banks and said, hey, we need to reduce our interest rates. But more importantly, and I want to speak to Warren on this issue, what would have happened just in the similar sense of the United States if it was that depositors and savers, pensioners, went to the bank? The reason why FinSAC happened was because the People's National Party said to itself, we're not going to allow pensioners, savers, and depositors to lose their money.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. Nadine McLeod has the next question, and it goes to Team PNP.
2 days ago, students at St. Jago High School in Riverdale, St. Catherine were terrorized. Police and criminals fired at each other just outside their school compound. What more should be done to ensure the safety of students at school? And give us 2 specific programs which your government will implement to do so.
Well, firstly, it was with regret that we saw, all of us as Jamaicans, saw the terror that those students must have felt and underwent during their exams at St. Jago High School. It's part and parcel of what we referred to earlier when we spoke about the sustained effort through mutual agreements and functional cooperation to break the back permanently of narco-terrorism and transnational crime. What we are seeing is the embers of the fight that was started by the insistence of Dr. Peter Phillip when he was National Security Minister and the People's National Party administration to go against these criminal networks. In terms of returning to office, the People's National Party, as we've emphasized, will also spend resources more suitably and apply them where they're needed. If communities around St. Jago High School had enterprises, then you would not have had so many available hands for those
Thank
weapons.
you, Mr. Price. A rebuttal now from Team JLP.
Mr. Price has failed to enunciate that the attack was carried out by a criminal affiliate of the People's National Party called the Klansman Gang. We have been saying that we must commence on a process of de-garrisonization. The offer by the Prime Minister to the opposition leader to walk these communities was rejected, and we must condemn them and say they must now demonstrate in no uncertain terms that they are against criminal gangs and against these affiliates who would do a daring daylight attack as they did against the students at St. Jago High.
Thank you, Mr. Newby. We will now take the final break. We invite you to stay tuned.
The smiles on their faces mean more than just happiness. Since 2002, the JPS Early Childhood Nutrition Program has been supporting thousands of children across the island. The program now feeds 30,000 basic school students every day. With good nourishment, they're eager and able to learn. The JPS has links to communities that go well beyond wires and poles. Here, with a little help from JPS, early childhood students are getting a chance to shine.
Now this one is called All About the Music.
Fulfilling hopes, creating dreams, and making a difference are at the heart of the Daniel Geddes Foundation. Through our Diageo Learning for Life skills training programs, over 1,800 Jamaicans now have a real chance of contributing to Jamaica's economic growth.
Upon being accepted, we learn a lot of things. Before, I thought I was just going to come and mix up some drinks and flip some bottles and stuff. But before we got to that, the meat of the matter, I learned personal development, working with colleagues and customers, communicating on the telephone instead of saying, hello, who is this?
Certified as bartenders, drapery makers, plumbers, tilers, waiters, housekeepers, customer service agents, and landscapers. Diageo Learning for Life graduates are empowered, competent, and able to give back to their families, communities, and Jamaica. The Daniel Geddes Foundation, here for Jamaicans, here for Jamaica.
It's all about the music.
Go out and vote for who we want to vote for and respect each other.
Can't go every day and kill off one another, so we need love.
Violence just mash up Jamaica.
Even the devil vex over it, brother.
We are all one Jamaican.
We want peace and we want to know to reason one another.
Well, let's keep things violence free.
So please, peace all the way.
Crime free election, and that me I ask for.
Share a direct, unified love with each other.
One nation united under God. Jamaica need love. No gun, just love.
Respect.
Respect. Respect. Respect.
Respect.
Trust.
The National Political Debates, brought to you by Jamaica Debates Commission, in association with Jamaica Public Service Company Limited, changing lives with their mission, and the DNG Foundation, here for Jamaicans, here for Jamaica.
Welcome back to the first in a series of 3 political debates being facilitated by the Jamaica Debates Commission. If you're just joining us, welcome as well. We invite Ingrid Brown of the Jamaica Observer to start this final segment with a question for Team JLP.
The dismantling of garrisons has been an issue preached from many a political platform by different administrations, with nothing done to really make this a reality. Why should Jamaicans believe that there will ever be an end to garrisons?
Well, the dismantling of garrisons is critical to the development of the nation and in a whole, generally. The JLP administration has embarked on the Community Renewal Program, which focuses on young Jamaicans and primarily female heads of households and other vulnerable groups. The focus area being youth development, economic empowerment through microlending and business opportunities, police community relations, sanitation, housing. Now, the 5 most crime-affected parishes are the targets to start this program: Kingston and St. Andrew, St. Catherine, Clarendon, and St. James. October of this year has seen the commencement of this program. The Community Renewal Program is based in creating opportunities for individuals who would normally be left aside and normally who are unattached to some sort of progression in their livelihood. And so there are opportunities for economic growth, there are opportunities for social development, and there are opportunities for healthcare that will transcend mental, social, physical, and social
Thank you, Dr. Longmore. A rebuttal now
factors.
from Team PNP.
The issue of dismantling garrisons is not just on a constituency basis in terms of a political constituency. Look, for example, at the recent illustration by Senator Newby in trying to create a garrison among youth groups when he prevented the Most Honorable Portia Simpson Miller from responding to a request by young people to address them at their conference. He made reference earlier to affiliates of the PNP. The People's National Party has 3 affiliates: the Youth Organization, the Women's Movement, and the National Workers' Union. It is also sad that he omitted to confirm that those areas where that activity took place are represented by 2 female members of parliament on the JLP side, Sharon Hay-Webster and the Honourable Olivia Babsy-Grange.
Garfield Burford has the next question, and it goes to Team PNP.
The IMF has warned about pressures to increase wages and subsidies, and these, it says, threaten measures to bring down high debt in countries of the region, Latin America and the Caribbean. How would a future PNP government reduce the central government wages to GDP ratio to 9% within the medium term without significant jump cuts in the public sector?
Well, the truth is we don't even know what the status is in terms of the agreement that the Jamaica Labour Party has with the IMF. In terms of what we would do, we've done it before and we'll do it again. The IMF standby agreement has to be renegotiated. In terms of moving forward and bringing the wage bill down, we'll have to find cost-effective ways. We'll have to find innovative ways to reallocate resources so that we manage any kind of public sector, private sector fallout. But to answer your question directly, we are going to go in, see what the problem is, because we don't know, and the JLP has not told us.
The addition to that is going back to basics. If you don't grow the economy, there are 2 ways to deal with the wage as a proportion of GDP. You can either cut jobs, which they seem that their only option will be, or you can grow the economy. It wouldn't be the first time the People's National Party assumed government when the economy was in crisis. In 1989, there was a debt-to-GDP ratio of 269%.
Thank you, Mr.
We brought
Price.
it down to 107%.
From Team JLP.
I would agree with Lisa on one point, that they don't know what is to be done. Because the fact is, for the election year of 1993, the public service was increased by the People's National Party. For the election year of 1997, the public service was similarly increased. And for the election year of 2002, it was similarly increased. This has bloated our public service numbers. And we now have to take decisive steps in how to deal with it. Instead of laying off people, what we are doing is dealing with attrition rates. And I'll allow Marlene
I can only take the statement that we have done it before and we'll do it again means that we have mashed up the economy before and we'll mash it up again.
Nadine McLeod has the next question, and it goes to Team JLP.
Give 2 specific programs which your party in power will put in place to solve the shortage of qualified pharmacists in the public health sector.
Well, what has been happening in the pharmaceutical sector, not just pharmaceutical, but in healthcare generally, has been a task shifting, in the sense that what you try to do is basically persons who are specially trained are assigned to the tasks that they're trained for. And so, like in our primary health centers, what we want to do is equipped with a medically trained doctor, a nurse, a health aide, and a psychiatric health aide, liaison officer. And essentially what you're trying to do is create a situation where persons who are specifically trained for a particular job. So previously what has happened is that a nurse would be doing record keeping and would be doing other household tasks, so to speak, in terms of keeping the clinic running. Essentially what you're trying to do is get persons specifically trained to deal with those tasks. So a records keeper would be employed. Likewise, that is what is being done in the pharmaceutical industry. We recognize that pharmacists need to
Thank you, Dr.
employed.
Longmore. A rebuttal now from Team PNP.
I'm trying to steady myself because I'm confused. I thought the question was how do you increase the numbers, right? And I'm thinking that if we want to increase the numbers, we spoke to something like this earlier, and I gave the facts earlier. 156 positions, only 45 persons. Now, you want to first see if you can interest persons into coming across from the private sector into the public sector. 2, you want to train people. And if it is that you need to bond them, then fine. But you need to first identify that you need to train people because there's a shortage and attack it from that angle. But I am confused as to what I'm hearing. And I want Jamaica to know that this election is something serious. And it can't just be about talking, it can't just be about people running off their mouth. It has to be based on
Thank you, Dr.
issues.
Campbell. Ingrid Brown has the next question. It goes to Team PNP.
Gangs have over time aligned themselves to political parties. What can your party do as a public show to Jamaicans that you are serious about distancing yourselves from this population?
You know, I'm happy you used the phrase about public show. It is not the People's National Party who is big on public shows and public relations. We intend to address and continue to address the issue of crime. First and foremost, we will continue to allow the police and the military to do their job professionally. It has never been an area held by the People's National Party that barricaded itself and its citizens from the rest of the country and had a prime minister in its leader speak about expending political capital to maintain such a closed community, an exclusive zone of mayhem, and protecting who is now a confessed criminal in another jurisdiction. Through greater care in spending resources so that enterprise can return to these communities, we will not have to have an issue about alignment of gangs with communities
Thank you,
or
Mr.
parties.
Price. A rebuttal now from Team JLP.
My fellow Jamaicans, the issue of gang alignment with political parties is one that continues to plague us. And I don't think we can meaningfully address it by going along the blame game. Both sides must share the responsibility to deal with this. This is Jamaica we're talking about, you know. This is the future of Jamaica we're talking about. Let us be real. The question was posed about reality. Whose reality do we live in? We shouldn't politicize this issue. We should all be part of the solution. And we must break that connection. Break it. It's doing us more harm than good.
Thank you, Mrs. Mallow-Hufort. Garfield Burford has the next question. It's with Team JLP.
Again, raising the issue of radical solutions, because many Jamaicans expect fresh and innovative thinking from younger members of your party, like yourselves. So again, I ask, what is your most radical strategy or solution to addressing the big issues that we have in the country, social and economic? Your most radical solution as young people?
Well, I will start by indicating that we have identified several industries that we believe to be the pillars of the new Jamaican economy. Tourism, ICTs, agriculture, the financial services, the creative industries, logistics, and maritime services. We are aggressively pursuing investments in these areas and a national export strategy that will anchor all our undertakings to enable us to gain greater foreign exchange from our efforts as an economy.
I want to see youth offenders who commit petty crimes be taken outside of the criminal justice system and be dealt with on a social renewal path. And I think we have legislation on board which requires implementation and requires funding, and I think that the government is to move aggressively to ensure that those programs become a reality. A lot of our youths are
Thank you, Mrs. Mallow-Hufort. A rebuttal now from Team PNP.
The most radical thing that they could come with is truth-telling. Sitting in this audience, Sapphire, you're totally blameless here. In addition to the senators on the platform, is at least one other senator. All three have their names affixed to an affidavit that said nothing wrong was done with respect to the handling of the extradition matter. And then they speak about transparency, and then they speak about radical changes. Fact of the matter is, as long as you have a government such as the Jamaica Labour Party that continues to obfuscate, ignore and misdiagnose, we won't have any improvements for the lot of our young people, our elderly, our police, teachers, nurses, or any other sector of the Jamaican family.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Nadeem McLeod has what may be the final question. It goes to Team PNP.
The general election is in a few weeks, and a number of media houses have been putting under public scrutiny utterances made on political platforms. What's your view on that matter?
I think it's an excellent standard that the media houses have continued to do, and I apologize on behalf of all active politicians for the ugly and vulgar threats that members of your fraternity have come under from members of that party, and I invite you three to do the same today. I think that under the People's National Party's progressive agenda, our pillar of participation, accountability, and responsibility, the media has shown its readiness to continue to partner with us and help us to increase that culture of saying the truth and saying the truth only. We have seen lapses recently where perhaps were it not for the good work of the media, people would not have known that a Jamaican dollar has never reached 90, or that eucalyptus perhaps is not something that should be ingested at all, but perhaps applied on the chest or on the pillow. So we thank you for your continued good work.
A rebuttal from Team JLP.
Well, we too reject the irresponsible statements that come from political platforms, such as the one that labeled me as a tribalist to cancel a function for which no permission was given by the ministry for it to be undertaken. We reject persons going out there to attack other members of political parties just on the basis of scoring political points.
I wish to say that I think the media play a very important role in highlighting issues. Very recently, I was on Television Jamaica, and I spoke to a question. I answered a question about problems in the constituency of Westmoreland Central, and I raised prostitution, and I was lied upon to say I called women prostitutes.
Thank you, Mrs. Malahoo-Ford. We will now go to the closing statements. Team JLP, based on the earlier coin toss decision, please go first.
My fellow Jamaicans, we are at a critical juncture in Jamaica's history, and the next election will determine our future in a way that it has never done before. And if you are like me, just tired of the old politics, just tired of the blame game, then I believe that we should all rise up and make a stance for it. The Jamaica Labour Party's administration has faced a number of challenges as it has attempted to lead this country. But you know, you miss 100% of the shots that you do not take. I think we need leaders of today for tomorrow, and we have a leader of today for tomorrow in our young Prime Minister, Andrew Holness. And I too am offering myself for representation, a leader of today for tomorrow for the people of Westmoreland Central. Let us put aside this blame game. Let us put Jamaica first. And let us say that enough is enough with this nasty politics that we've been a part of. We thank all of you for taking your right to vote seriously, and we ask you to come out and vote. And when you do so, vote for the Jamaica Labour Party. Vote for continuation of the management of the economy that will, having stabilized it, that will put it on the path for growth. Ladies and gentlemen, you are wise, you are smart. Let no one take you for granted. Let no one disregard your needs and believe that some areas are to be excluded. I am here and I will be fighting for the people of Westmoreland Central.
Thank you, Mrs. Malahoo-Ford. Thank you, Team JLP. We'll now, PNP, please go ahead with your closing statement.
The national anthem says it the best: give us vision lest we perish. We are seeing, have been seeing for the last 4 years, a situation where the Jamaican family is in peril, crisis, and on the brink of totally perishing. Since September 3, 2007, when the Jamaica Labour Party got Jamaica House, ever since then, with the losses of jobs, with the reduction in the growth of the economy, with the recession that happens here deeper and longer than anywhere else, all of Jamaicans have lost their house or is on the risk of losing their house. We see that in the increased numbers of houses on auctions, of cars being repossessed, of destabilization of families and of the society and the communities which make up the societies. The question really that applies is this one: are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? For our policemen now nervous about their pension program, the answer is no. For our teachers, the answer is no. For our nurses and indeed our pharmacists, the answer is no. For you at home, the consumers, the businessmen who have seen your profit margins shrink and then disappear, the answer is no. We are calling on Jamaicans to restore power to the people and not power to some. We're asking you to give yourselves a chance. Let us again restore progress and prosperity to Jamaica, moving forward with the PNP.
Thank you, Mr. Price, and thank you, Team PNP. And that concludes our first debate between Dr. Dayton Campbell, Ms. Lisa Hanna, and Mr. Raymond Price of Team PNP. and Mrs. Marlene Malahoo Fort, Mr. Warren Newby, and Dr. Sophia Longmore of Team JLP. Join us again on Thursday, December 15 at 9 p.m. for the debate focusing on finance and the economy between Finance Minister Mr. Audley Shaw and Dr. Peter Phillips of the PNP.